All right, welcome everybody. My name is Peter, and I have a little presentation for you here today where I'm going to tell you all about Barth. Barth, his full name is Bartholomew, and he's a otherworldly humanoid species. He lives on a different planet, which I'll get into in a minute. He's about 2.5 feet tall, which is normal, and about 77 Earth years old, which for his species, the life expectancy is about 400 Earth years. You can see a picture of him here. All right, and here's his homestead. He lives in a handmade double-stacked yurt on stilts, and it's important that it's on stilts because there are almost non-stop, constant earthquakes on this planet where he lives. All right, the tectonic plates are moving very rapidly and constantly here. So there's a lot of earthquakes. Everyone's used to it. In fact, if there went a week without an earthquake, it would be very suspicious for everyone. He's got the kitchen up on the second level there so that the smoke can go out the little hole at the top. He just chills down on the bottom level. That's like his little entertainment area. And sometimes he relaxes underneath if he wants some fresh air, but also wants to, stay out of the sun or maybe between the levels. As you can see, he lives there in a little valley, got some mountain ranges in the background, and he doesn't live too close to anyone else, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, a pretty rural area. All right, and here's the planet he lives on, the planet of Hamtam. It's the only planet in the solar system besides a huge asteroid belt, all right? It's very habitable. We humans would probably be able to live and survive on this planet without too much trouble. There'd be a couple things we need to do, but you can see here that an arrow is pointing to the island he lives on right there, which up until a couple of years ago was connected to a larger continent there. But like I said, the plate tectonics move like crazy here. Everything's just floating around on a huge layer of magma just below the surface under the crust there. So everything is just kind of swimming around. The continents are bumping into each other. In fact, the mountains behind his house that you saw in a previous picture weren't even there 20 years ago. And Barth's favorite and primary method of transportation is this motorbike, which he got down at the pawn shop a few years ago. It's designed to do mostly wheelies on the large rear wheel, except at very slow speeds, and it runs mostly on vegetable oil that he refines himself down by the river. It's a pretty simple process, but we'll also touch on that again a little bit later. And it's pretty fun to just ride around. Sometimes if he's bored, he just goes on a little cruise. There's pretty much only dirt roads in this part of the country, which is one reason why he needs such a big knobbly off-road tire like that. But once you get into town, which is several miles away, the roads are a little nicer, but a lot of people have vehicles like this there. All right, and here's some of his personal effects, like his toothbrush, his hairbrush, and some lip balm. This is a double-sided toothbrush, which these are all hand-carved from the wood of the Calabaro tree. And he I don't know, I guess he just thought that it would be smarter to have a double-sided toothbrush so that he could brush two things at once, whether it's his upper and lower teeth, or one side of his teeth and his tongue, or his teeth and like the inside of his cheek or something. Whatever it is, it works for him. His teeth do continuously grow over time, so he's not as prone to cavities as we are, but it helps with gingivitis, bad breath, just general personal hygiene. So he still brushes, and he brushes his hair, but just because it's prone to get tangled. And lip balm, just because the air here on this planet is very dry due to the intense heat from the magma being very close to the surface, right? Here you can see his mobile phone. He uses the phone, you can see here, to watch YouTube, to browse the internet, and to check email. He actually hasn't called anyone on it in over 15 years or so. In fact, he doesn't really know of anyone that talks on the phone. He does every now and then get spam calls from like telemarketers or someone trying to buy his house from him, or someone like offering to forgive all his, like, something about all the debt he doesn't have, or weird cases of mistaken identity. He's tired of getting these calls, but he doesn't know how to stop getting them. You can see here a GPS tracker that he found on his motorbike the other day, which is a little bit curious to him. He's not actually 100% sure that's what it is, but he thinks that's what it is. Also, he found this button, which he thinks is probably a microphone that someone sewed onto his shirt. So he's getting a little bit paranoid at the moment that someone is like tracking him, or they're bugging him, or he doesn't even know who would be curious as to what he's up to these days. But he's keeping his eyes peeled. That's important. Here you can see his vitamin injector. These are pretty common on the planet at the moment because about 50 years ago there was an extinction event where all sources of naturally occurring vitamin C, like every plant or anything that had vitamin C naturally occurring in it, went extinct. So everyone now has to import it or synthesize it, and then they inject it. Also, his skin grows at an incredible rate, which results in lots of moles and stuff like that. But it doesn't hurt too much to snip off his moles. But it's good to do it before they grow out of control too much. Kind of like we clip our fingernails. He clips his moles off, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. Just set aside a few minutes to do a little mole clipping. And there's like a little red spot left after you clip them off, but it goes away after a few hours. Just part of general personal hygiene, You can tell when someone is, they don't take care of them if they have, tons of moles or something. So photography is one of Barth's hobbies, and here's his camera. He has a couple of different lenses for it. He's kind of in the process of doing some researching online on his phone for another lens he wants to get, but he hasn't decided yet. At the moment, his favorite thing to take pictures of is he goes out early in the morning and he gets close-up shots of insects trying to crawl up tall, dew-laden stalks of grass. And there's just something there that inspires him about their tiny struggle that means so much to them, but so little to everyone else. And he tries to somehow capture that feeling in his photography. So far, he hasn't ever really shown anyone else his photography, but it's good enough for him. He does have a yard, and he has this little yard mower, just a push mower that he uses sometimes. But lately he's gotten a little behind on it, and so a lot of the grass has grown almost too tall and too thick for the yard mower to handle. So I think he'll probably need to get something more serious, like, I don't know, maybe hire someone to like knock it down to a more manageable level before he can go at it with the yard mower again, and hopefully he'll stay on top of it, for letting it get totally out of control. But sometimes it's just nice to let it go. It feels a little bit more wild, and as long as he has a few little spots to hang out, and sit and, grill vegetables or something every now and then, he's fine. Right? And he does have a little bit of jewelry for special occasions, as you can see here. He wears this stuff not all the time, just for things like cookouts, coronations, condemnations, things that the town gathers together for, any group of people. But on just like a general day-to-day basis, he stays fairly unadorned. Most of these are just made out of wood and plant fiber. He's got the charm bracelet and a ritual necklace and some clip-on earrings. But he doesn't like the clip-on earrings because at first, maybe for the first hour or so, it'll make his earlobes hurt. But then after that, it just kind of goes numb. And then it takes like a whole day for the sensation to come back to his earlobes, and it just doesn't seem healthy to him. But he's also afraid of needles, so he doesn't want to get his ears pierced, which is also why he is not that healthy right now, because he's afraid to use the vitamin injector, so he's vitamin C deficient. So that's just something he's struggling with at the moment. Here you can see a little schematic for a water purifier that he uses. There are high levels of silica naturally occurring in the water, which is largely in part to how close the water table is to the cushion of magma that the continents are floating around on. He uses this handmade water filtration system that he learned how to make from YouTube tutorials. And the filter tank, you can see down there on the lower right-hand side of it, has sand, shredded microfiber doormats, and crushed buoy nuts in it, which is surprisingly effective and also very cheap, because all those things are very like readily available. It doesn't take any fancy things that he has to order from the internet or anything to make it, and the water is clean and safe to drink after that. So that's good. He keeps the purifier out back and just goes and empties the tank into a couple gallon jugs every now and then, and he's good to go. Here are some identification papers. These papers are issued at birth to every citizen on this planet. The whole planet is one country with some sub-countries, they're called, and they're issued at birth, reissued every 25 years, because these people of his species change a lot how much they look. Just because, like I mentioned, their skin grows a lot, so their whole appearance can change. And one thing they do to combat that is that this ribbon you see stamped there onto the paper is actually laced with some of their DNA. But yeah, every 25 years they have to go to the capital city of Camplam to do it, and that can be more or less difficult to go there to get to the city based on the state of continental drift. Sometimes it can be a land journey, and sometimes they have to take a long boat journey, or on the very expensive side of things. If the capital has drifted all the way to the other side of the planet, which is sometimes the case over 100 years or so, they just fly, which is very expensive though at this state of their technological advancement. All right, here's some of the local flora that grows here, fruits and veggies. Most of these are readily, naturally occurring. All right, Barth eats all these, but he doesn't have to plant or garden or farm. He just walks outside and picks something to eat each day. It's like his version of grocery shopping. Sometimes he does it weekly, depending on how, forward-thinking he's feeling. It all just grows faster than it can be eaten. All right. Barth boils or stir-fries most of it. If he's going to eat it raw, it's more likely going to be some of the fruits, or maybe just he makes some dip sometimes for some of the vegetables, but it kind of depends on how lazy he's feeling. But sometimes he gets fancy with a stir fry, Here you can see one of Barth's newest toys. It was an impulse buy from the flea market in town. It's called a rocket shooter, and he just uses it for plinking. Every now and then he just goes down the road a little bit, shoots at a mountainside. It was very cheap, and it came with 500 complimentary rockets, and so he just goes out and shoots a few every now and then, and he's kind of been digging a tunnel in the side of a mountain with his rocket shooter, and who knows, maybe he might find something in there soon, or eventually, or never. He might hit magma if he's not careful. All right, and here's his comfy chair. This is probably his favorite piece of furniture in his whole house, in his yurt, and he sits in this for things like watching YouTube on his phone. And he also actually sleeps in it since he got it. It's much more comfortable than his sleeping mat, which is just made of woven plant fibers and a little cushion under it with leaves and stuff. But he also sits in it to eat and to read and to pick his nose for a few hours every day. But he would never admit that to anyone. But I'm just telling you that from a kind of a scientific, like a research point of view. But if you asked him, he would never admit to picking his nose, so don't tell him I told you, okay? Just between me and you. All right, and over here you can see a stringed instrument, they call it. Sometimes he sits out on the front steps, sometimes inside, but in the evenings there's a breeze that comes by up from the river. It smells nice outside. He sits on the front steps and practices until the bugs get too bad. He just practices playing this and has a couple instructional books that he bought online, and he also watches some YouTube tutorials for how to kind of work through some of his favorite songs. And he just enjoys kind of tinkering around on the stringed instrument. kind of like a way to unwind, just playing songs for himself, you know. All right, and over here you can see I'm illustrating for you a tooth file, and his teeth, like I mentioned earlier, keep growing out endlessly. Humans have baby teeth and then adult teeth, and that's all you have. Barth, his species, only has one set of teeth, and they never stop growing, kind of like our fingernails, right? These teeth actually grow at about the same rate as fingernails, about 3 millimeters per month, so he needs to file them down. So he uses the tooth file. The tooth oil makes this easier and helps to smooth out the edges. And he collects the tooth dust in a jar, which he then uses as a catalyst in the process for making biofuel for his motorbike. It's not needed. You can make biofuel without the tooth dust, but it makes it quicker, makes it so it only takes about 17 hours to make a whole tank full as opposed to about 48 hours. That's really the only difference, but it might as well, right? Might as well. All right, and here are some of his general utensils for eating and preparing food. You can see here the fork and the knife and the delp. These are made out of pewter. He doesn't know how to make these. He just buys these in town. These are all pretty common for this part of the planet. Very cheap. And the delp, you can see there has some leather bindings on the handle just because it's bent a little weird. And this one, you do some weird pressing, grinding, twisting, rotary motions with it. So the leather makes it a little easier on the hand there. And then finally, you can see here, there's a technical pen. This is it's a really nice one actually. And he uses it for drawing schematics for things like his water purifier, or improvements to his motorbike, or the system for refining the biofuel. Right now, he's actually working on plans to expand his yurt to a 3rd level with like a little balcony and stuff. But it's really pretty tough because the taller the yurt gets, the more obviously unstable it will get, and the more it will wobble and wave back and forth every time there is an earthquake. So he's taking his time with it because he has many times experienced building collapse with when earthquakes happen. Everyone that lives here on this planet it's a very common experience. That's why no one builds anything too permanent or solid, or no one builds out of wood or stone or anything, because that hurts more when it falls on you. Anyways, here you have it about Barth, a little mood board. You can maybe have like a little glimpse into his life here, what he's about, what he goes through every day. Let me know what you want to learn all about next, who or what or when or where. I have, obviously, I know a lot of stuff, so if I know about what you want to know, I'll be glad to share it with you. I'll have some more videos coming up soon. Some like this, some not like this. I feel like I have a decent variety. So go ahead and subscribe if you want to, and I'll be back with you soon. All right, see y'all later. Thanks for watching. All right, bye.